"Next! Sir, you're next," she called out, making me lurch up suddenly. I looked around at some of the others in the waiting room staring at me. I stood up and straightened myself out for a few moments before walking over to her.
"You can go in for your interview now,"
she said, her eyes rolling at me.
"Sure, sorry,"
I said, still a bit disoriented. He called me Ardiel. Is that my name there? I walked down the long hallway, trying to snap myself to alertness when I looked down at my hands and noticed red marks along my palms. Rope burns. Impossible. My steps slowed, sputtered, and finally ceased to a stop as I attempted to reconcile what my eyes were seeing. The redness by degrees began to fade while I looked at them.
"Sir!"
I gathered myself and proceeded to the woman's office after pausing briefly at a water fountain. A few seconds of cold water running over my face was required, after which I deemed myself sufficiently out of my own head and hopefully ready. Once I entered, she looked up to me and gestured to a chair. She told me her name, but I forgot it moments later. Although I have always been very good at remembering lines, I find retaining names to be a bit burdensome. I smiled back and went in, prepared with only my well-honed stage wits. Almost immediately, however, I understood why they thought me foolish to apply for the promotions job. It consisted of only one thing: dressing up as a giant squirrel and standing on a street corner with a sign. It was a mascot gig, 12 hours a week. Desperate to go home with a victory, any victory, I took it. I assuaged my pride with a bit of self-delusory, an inner soliloquy that I could at least tell others that I worked for a media company. Because at that time what others thought of me was of some importance. I walked out of the office without looking at anyone, although I am sure that I heard a giggle or two. Of course, I continued looking for other, more corporate employment, but as the weeks went on, it became clear that this was all I was going to get. No more interviews came, no new opportunities arrived. I had to accept that this would be my employment for some time to come. Within weeks, I found myself loathing the squirrel. It was an ill-fitting brown fur suit with a massive head, buck teeth, and oversized foam feet. Admittedly, the task was simple and designed so that any idiot could do it, I being only the latest in a long line, surely. Even so, there was little money and even less dignity. I had to wave at cars and pedestrians as they went by. Often I would need to hold a sign, sometimes not, but the goal was always the same: to beg people to buy newspapers, which no one read anymore anyway. At first, I tried to daydream of future success, but that activity was short-lived. I hated it! Hated it like one might hate washing dishes or cleaning toilets. Even now, I find it difficult to accurately describe the isolation and dichotomy involved with wearing the squirrel. You are, on one hand, so conspicuous, yet terribly hidden. You are an object of derision to all that see you, the very symbol and national costume of Failure Land. Usually my sentence came in 4 to 6 hour shifts, the suspenders digging into my neck all the while. Wearing the baggy nut-brown suit felt more akin to a straitjacket. I felt like an inmate in the laughingstocks, with occasional visiting rights from teenagers hurling rude comments from their cars. I often espied a car identical to my stepmother's, convoking a suspicion that she circled the block time and time again just to cackle at me. Is this, too, some nightmare? The humiliation of each day put me into an almost trance-like state, half awake, half asleep, counting creeps driving by, driving hope into hibernation. During the colder weather, the aroma of the rodentine regalia was less apparent, but as the heat grew, the odor became more profound. I distinctly remember one hot summer day when I turned 33, actually. The heat built up in the compartment, and despite the small fans turning my hair into a soaking mop, spilling sweat down my entire face. What has happened to me, I wondered. Such a rise I had, and such a fall. There I was, banished to the center of a squirrel's head, a bubble, a false second cranium, the 4 inches of air between face and foam, permeated with the taste of a sick room, that necrotic smell usually found emanating from behind the drawn curtains of nursing homes. Every inward breath strained from the lack of oxygen, giving entrance to all manner of foul contagions. The inner space was just large enough to give the sensation of being in a padded cell. Surely madmen felt this whilst locked up in asylums, their mind awake, smothered beneath soundproofed quilting. But that was not quite true in my case. I could see through a fine mesh, which covered the mouth, allowing me to peer out, but no one in. Though I could not move more than 3 feet from my post, indeed even my hands were trapped in felt mittens that made scratching impossible, I was still free to wander the dark frontiers of my drowning mind. What had that deceptive ghost, so lovingly designated as Clyde, done to me? I was an impoverished lickspittle, wearing my own dystopia like a spacesuit on an alien world. My fiscally anemic body unable to handle the pressure of the capitalist atmosphere around me. Have you ever felt this way? Probably not. Anyway, in despair, my ruling faculties were overtaken by darkness. I smothered my face into the foam and screamed a voiceless shriek inward that rattled the deepest, most hidden chambers of my mentality. The psychotic ripples breaking over the edge of my consciousness. I longed for transcendence. I longed for the absolute. After all, that was my favorite kind of vodka. "Give me what I want!" I demanded internally. "Give it to me!" Almost as soon as these mental screechings entered the ether, I noticed a subtle change. The batteries powering the fans started spinning slower and slower. Eventually, the sound of my whining life support system went silent, their batteries hot and empty. The sound of car horns filled my ears as I desperately tried to ignore an itch I couldn't scratch. The temperature steadily rose. Sweat poured from pores and over an even poorer figure. It was then, during the long, lonely birthday shift, that I began to realize that I was not forgotten by the universe. After all, my aspirations had come true. I hadn't even recognized it. I had been wishing for pity and had therefore become pitiful. I had made my problems real and gift-wrapped them to myself as a present. When I came home from my furry-tailed outing, my demeanor had stabilized into an unfeeling mental paralysis. I walked back up the broken stairs and sat blankly in the attic. If I must suffer, well, I will henceforth suffer proudly, I thought to myself. Thus determined, I tried reading a few pages of a cheap fantasy novel, but the poor writing only insulted me. I could only lay in bed. The sloped ceilings of the space seemed to come alive, pinching and pinning me down to the mattress, prohibiting my resistance. The ceiling felt more like a corbelled vault, holding up countless tons of stone, and the attic more of a tomb than a room. During the small hours of that night, fiends drifted into me as nightmares. No drink could bring me comfort, though not for lack of trying. By dusk, I passed the wakeful night beneath dreams of dreadful weight. I could remember little of them at first, but soon thereafter I would be transported into them with unnatural clarity. I find myself among tall golden grasses and a stone monument of some kind. It is roughly hewn, and at its base is a small, well-like opening cut into the ground. After looking around for a moment, I decide to move over and look down into it. Once I have a proper view, I can see that there is water inside, but not the foul brownish waters I'd seen before. This liquid is clear and rises almost to the top amid a curious set of lines and hash marks carved into the side of the pit as if to measure its level. What is this? I feel a hand rest on my right shoulder. It is the grizzled gray henchman from my previous dream. His ragged peasant-like garb and wide floppy hat curiously imbue him with a sort of trustworthiness, that mysterious essence cave-dwelling philosophers might have, whose words must hold the greatest possible authority.
"Come, sleepy actor,"
the old man says. I turn around to see the wagon again and the thick rope dangling from the front.
"We are very near now."
I grab the rope and we start to pull the burden again, up the gentle incline. What seems like tall wild grains border the path as we travel, and the trees, more and more, confine themselves to clumps among the rolling landscape. We travel this way for a time. I rub my hands together, both of them hot from the rope.
"Come,"
he says again.
"it's almost time."
He clearly needs no bird to speak with me. Furthermore, the beard of my escort grows longer and grayer as we travel. Indeed, I begin to feel less and less comfortable being near him. From the corner of my eye, I detect him staring at me, and I'm uncertain if he desires discourse or has more devious designs. After some time, we arrive at the foot of the great mountain. A thin ring of clouds encircles the peak about 3/4 of the way up and filters golden light below into a gentle diffusion that I find soothing. Its soft light bathes its flanks to such a degree that the fields of burnt yellow grasses seem to emit light themselves. Warmth covers me, and I close my eyes to feel its energy upon my face as I walk. A strange new scent enters my nose, a warm, spicy smell that seems to come from the higher ground. Additionally, I feel more active, as if the weight of the air was somehow lighter.
"Follow closely,"
he says. I look at the old man. He smiles and nods several times before dropping his rope. After we stop, he walks over and takes a clay jug from the wagon and fills a small cup and offers it to me. I drink from it. An outlandish taste. Well, kind of like Diet Coke and vodka. The old man lifts an odd wooden staff from the wagon, the end of which terminates into several gnarled stumps resembling a pitchfork.
"Once I had a shinier one. How and where I've come by this, I remember not,"
he says. My companion watches me closely. So attentive are his eyes that I wonder who else is looking through them. I finish my drink and hand the cup back to him and reach down for the rope when he stops me. He points up to the plateau on the mountain where the trees grow more thickly again. He walks toward it for a moment before turning back. An anxious look overtakes the wanderer before looking on in a hurried fashion and gesturing me to hurry up after him. We abandon the wagon and begin our ascent on the face of Carthagust, the roadway narrowing and cutting up the mountainside in wide zigzags. The twilight beams from the mountain shine down on the ground before us, and although weakly lit beneath these denser trees, an odd landmark reveals itself from the undergrowth. It is a keep, long abandoned, that immediately fills me with uncomfortable recollections. A circular and ancient moss-covered stone wall seems to awaken from the brush first. As we approach, ivy and other concealments that had cloaked it for unknown eons lean away, the ruin disrobing itself proudly as if waiting for me. I walk nearer to the unusual structure, staring in wonder at who or what this might have been built for. Although half swallowed in a hillock, flying buttresses can be discerned, like a spider's legs propping up one side of the structure. I walk all the while followed. Over the wall and beyond it, I can spy further inside of the ruin. The old bearded man and I stroll into the roofless chamber with a feminine shyness. The ancient remains cast a spell on me. Its will embodied in stone, cyclopean blocks of incomprehensible weight, impossible for mortals to tool. I brush some soft earth from an unglazed window and lay my hand on its timeless sill. The stone is worn, as if it had seen many battles, the last of which was most certainly lost. Even partially buried, I can see this ruin would have been something mighty to behold in an earlier time. Uneven paving stones are centered in the middle of a circular well, disjointed from the movements of the mountain. Midpoint, a spiral stairway drills down into the earth. I traverse the overgrowth and pull the vines and thorn bushes from the opening for a better view. I begin to step cautiously down the moist stairs, my companion shadowing behind with an alarming sense of expectancy. Finally, the old traveler grabs my shoulder, as if cautioning me to stop.
Enter and retrieve. Nothing stays buried forever,
He says, as I descend carefully down the slippery stone. An unexpectedly warm air rises from the opening, and I feel a flushing through my skin, a sensation akin to floating in a steeping bath. I step slowly. The breeze grows warmer still and creates a low, whispering hum as it blows through the crannies of this ancient ingress. I find that it almost sounds like an elongated word. The word is hush. This might not be a great idea, I think to myself. The spiral of the stairs widens, as if walking down into an urn. The shape of the chamber echoes with dripping water, which conceals the sound of my footfalls. The walls stare back at me through hundreds of faces carved into the stone. The watchers are roughly spaced in rows and columns and are eroded from untold years. Their expressions are eerily meaningful. They watch me as I move and gawk at me like an anxious audience. But as I look closer, I can tell that they are carved into the rock, concaved like the insides of 1,000 masks, not staring at me, but outward, as if I were behind them. Their eyes are black pits that seem to emit a low thrumming, whistling sound. I step up and place my face within one of the indentations, arranging my eyes at the holes. I hear a distant, yet distinct sound of muffled laughter. The darkness in the holes begins to brighten when I pull away with a shudder. What is this place? I move further down. A strong smell of gum spirits rises up to meet me. The familiar scent irritates my eyes and brings into my thoughts the evil sea that I'd seen twice before. I pass an old, moldy door as I proceed, but its rotten timbers make me unwilling to try its handle. I move downward, toward the lower level. I reach the bottom step and dip my foot an inch into the water when my companion calls to me. It seems the murky liquid has long laid evaporating and looks unwelcomingly thick. He pulls at my clothes in an attempt to urge me back upwards, but his urgency strikes me as contrived. His movements are too slow, premeditated, and awkward, leading me to believe that he indeed wishes me to enter. Though I trust him less, my curiosity will not be stalled. There is a dim light ahead. I yank free and march down 5 more steps until I am waist deep, the water conspiring to drag me deeper still. I look back to my companion, who hesitates to come further, but he points toward a passage ahead. I appeal to the old figure, who gestures calmly that he cannot follow. I study his wrinkled face. His beard is now fully gray, ending in 3 mangled points, and his eyes are purple. He makes a signal with his hands, mimicking holding something square, and then mysteriously dissolves into the shadows, into the wall of faces. I've got to stop drinking in the middle of the night, I thought. I struggle further into the dark circular space. On inspection, I see that it is not rounded at all, but a great polygon. Each of the 16 sides are ruled in hard, angular faces, but unlike the previous contorted features, these faces are clean, mask-like, and in orderly rows and columns. The carvings remind me of the masks worn by the travelers I had encountered. A bright, dusty shaft of light flurries down from a hole in the ceiling, illuminating the room to my eyes by degrees. The shallow pool of water, half submerged in darkness, laps the walls as I move, exposing on occasion the waterline on the stone. The walls are etched and stripped where the liquid touches them, slowly eating away the stone like an acid. I wade over to one of the doors and notice that it's slightly ajar, and the bottom of it is utterly dissolved away. In the center, resembling a giant knocker, is a face much larger than the rest. Indeed, every door features a large mask, each one slightly different. The door in front of me has its left eye winking, and a 3-tined beard sprouting from its chin. Yet there is no sign of a handle. I push it in. I wedge through and see a massive arched hall with a patterned floor I think I recognize. Hexagonal tiles large enough to stand inside. The floor slopes up to take me out of the water. In the middle of the room stands a white stone altar. There's a high ceiling, not made of polished stone as the rest of the vault, but roughly hewn from the earth above, giving it a look of instability. As I turn my gaze, I see, behind the altar, a large engraving on the wall. I make my way over in the dim light while my feet lay wet footprints on the dusty floor. The engraving is huge. I examine the etchings on the wall before me. I touch the surface to find the carvings are at least a half an inch deep, while other parts of it are raised. On the whole, it is smooth, although some areas have been pecked roughly for contrast. The image had been tooled with a precision and attention to detail that granted it great significance. Also, it is well preserved. Unlike the rough scratchings I'd passed on the cavern's opening, this is a finely chiseled illustration of exceptional quality. I cannot fully appreciate its scope until I step back a few paces. The entire pictograph is at least 20 feet wide and extends from floor to ceiling. It depicts a landscape, showing the tumultuous sea on the left and the shoreline and the cliffs rising precipitously on the right. Within the scene stand 2 groups of people, all well proportioned. On the left, several naked men and women are wandering out of the rusty water. Strangely, all of their eyes are closed, and each holds their hands up chest high, offering a large and precious stone. To the right is the object of their sleepy supplications. On a small strip of rocky land, at the foot of the cliff, stand several masked warriors facing the sea, their weapons drawn. Their costumes are similar to the group I had met before, their illustration detailed and full of ornamentation. In their varied defensive postures, their attire appears well made and richly painted. There is no doubt as to which group the artist felt was the noblest. I stand looking at the 2 factions facing each other for some time, trying to absorb every detail and extract every clue embodied within it. Then I notice that one of the naked figures has his eyes slightly open, and unlike the offering hands of all the others, this one keeps fists behind his back. The entire work seems devised to impart some knowledge to the viewer. It is some cultish religious ritual, some reenactment being played out in stone. Who these people washing up on the shore were and why the masked fighters were so threatened by them, I cannot tell. But whatever it is trying to teach has gone unlearned. I look behind me to examine the altar in greater detail. Upon the dais is an aged cedar chest, which has a curious inscription on top that is quite indecipherable to me. Maybe this is the square thing the old man, or whatever he was, wanted me to retrieve. With both hands, I grab it and make my way out of the hole and back into the polygon-shaped room. I hear a sound like clinking coins from within the chest, and a few ring as if they had fallen onto the floor. I run out of the hole, my feet splashing the umber waters again, uplifting the dizzying vapors. Finally, I stand again in the many-sided chamber. Where is the entryway? The floor is hidden beneath the inky surface, and my weight suddenly triggers a trapdoor, sucking me into a concealed hole in the ground. Instinctively, I tighten my grip on the chest, using its unusual size to stay afloat as I am pulled into the hole. Ice-cold water surge up my legs, my waist, my neck, over my head. My lungs shrivel as chills lance through my body like impaling spikes. I shut my eyes, trying not to taste the corrosive tang on my lips as I go under. With my face pressed firmly against the cover of the chest, water everywhere threatening my breath, I open my eyes. In the dwindling light from above, I can see the strange inscription on its cover. Inexplicably, the symbols give up their meaning then, as if the knowledge washes into me with the dark waters. I read the one word in my mind.
Broodstew.
I wash out into a stone cave with a thump. Lightheaded from both the fall and the fuel-like smell, I stagger to my feet and wade toward a ledge. The cavern is warm, steamy, and the air much heavier than before. The only light comes from the water that's slightly illuminated from the hole above. There is one small passage roughly cut into the stone to one side of me. As my eyes slowly adjust, I can see that it was cut by hand. This idea is confirmed by the small metal pick with a wooden handle almost entirely disintegrated, save a reddish fungus lying at the passage entrance. I enter the small ingress and can almost feel the darkness enveloping me. The deeper I go, the more confined the space becomes. Navigating only with my hands, I discern the tunnel sloping downward and changing direction multiple times. At some point, I am forced to crawl forward, dragging the chest, bumping my head on the rough ceiling above. A small trickle of toxic water runs on the floor of the tunnel, wetting my hands and knees, giving me at least some hope of an eventual exit. As I progress forward, my clothes begin to crumble and fall away, the fabric eaten through with holes as if bleached for days. The tunnel stays straight for a time, allowing me to speed along when suddenly a turn tricks me into bumping my face into the stone again. I close my eyes instinctively when I can see. As once before, the stone appears opaque, my view bettered by the closing of my lids, the insight granting me some magic vision. I see a slight glow in the rock around me. At first, I think there are small specks in the stone giving off light, but as I travel deeper, I can see that it is the stone itself, becoming more translucent. With my new mind sight, I shuffle faster, ignoring the pain of my bruising knees and scraping knuckles. Although the tunnel is not straight, I can see that it is heading toward a glowing light deeper still. At last, I turn the final corner. I can see the light directly, pouring out from a square-shaped portal. As I approach the brightness of the opening, my eyes ache so much I can barely see again, but they finally adjust. On the floor is much rubble and many broken stones, and also something else that had a more man-made pattern to it. I reach over and pick it up. It is covered with rust and dirt, but as I scrape it clean, I can tell exactly what it is. An iron hand drill. The tunnel opens, and I realize I'm standing on the other side of my bedroom. The square opening of the attic windows fitted into the solid rock. They are boarded up as before, but I peer betwixt the planks and can see the uncanny coat rack quivering and myself sleeping in the bed right next to it. And the rack, it looks suspiciously similar to the wooden staff that old henchman had carried.
Wake up!
I shout reflexively.
Wake up!
I slam the chest against the window, I hear the strange low tone of the rack singing from inside the room. On the third blow, I succeed. The glass and the wood shatter together, sending hundreds of small golden objects flying about like tossed coins. The force of the clash is so strong that the contents are thrown in every direction, some even falling through the window. I open my eyes and look toward the windows to see one slightly open. The gap had let in a chill rain that must have started falling as I slept. The water on my nightstand dampened that terrible book I had been reading. Next to that stood a half-empty beer bottle and my clock. It stoically announced 3:59 a.m. Where are those little golden things? Where did they all land? There was a dark, moldy smell in the air. I was in the attic again, but something struck me as odd. A powerful and ominous feeling took me, and I knew something was wrong. Something was in the room with me. What followed me out of that dream space? I stared harder, peering into the gloom, waiting for the occasional passing car to perhaps aid me with weak beams of its distant headlights. The sound of the mounting rain could be heard on the roof. The slowly increasing pace of its tap-tapping breaks the previous silence. My eyes dart about the dark corners, scanning the shadows, until I finally spot who, or more singularly what, was amiss. Squirrel! A misshapen critter sat perched like a gargoyle on the lip of my floorboard, the rodent calmly glaring at me as if it were studying my reaction to the recent dream. Then the clock went black. Lightning, followed by a thunder clap. The clock began blinking 12 o'clock. The startled creature jumped away toward the unshut window, misjudging the crack, and smacked its head on the bottom before tumbling out into the rain in disgrace. I let out a frenetic coughing that gradually transformed into a loud laugh. The first time I'd laughed in months. The stunned little creature had departed, but I knew that the presence had returned. I looked over to my half-open closet door to see my black fleece hanging silently from one of the many hooks of the emancipated keepsake. Once again, whoever had helped to guide me years before had intruded, superintending my sleep. I rose up, turned on a light, and reached for the near-empty bottle on the nightstand. Before I could take a sip, the rain burst out of the sky in a torrent, streaming against the windows and rapping wildly on the shingles above. I took a few deep breaths before moving back towards my bed. Then I noticed that my black box, my makeup kit, which I kept in my room, was open, and its contents were removed. Instinctively, I cast a dubious eye on the tall brass crook, but the items were not there. I strenuously scanned the floor for the cosmetic articles of my profession, but found nothing except my little mirror broken in two. My eyes ached. I closed them for a moment and rubbed my thumbs into the sockets to relax the tension. When I opened them, I screamed! Now, do not think me mad, but when I opened my eyes again, I saw another staring right back at me. It was a severed face, floating so near me I gagged. Truly, so little space separated me from its pale flesh that I deemed it had poured itself upon me. I recoiled in terror, knocking over the nightstand and everything on it. I knelt there for a moment, motionless, mentally addled. The only light came from the faint red glow of my digital clock lying upside down on the carpet. What the fuck? Although I was stunned and half awake, the modernity of the glowing LEDs gave me some comfort, and so I stared at them, hoping they would pull me back to reality. But instead I spied a little golden charm on the floor right near it. Instinctively, I pinched it off the carpet and found that it was a small gilded face, about the size of a thumbnail, barely illuminated by the red shine of my clock. My eyes shifted to the timepiece, and I noticed an image in the clear plastic, a slight reflection of something behind me. I shuddered and let escape a pitiful gasp. The face was still there, invisible in all ways except for its mugging countenance, only perceptible by the grease paint smeared upon it. I turned away quickly with a shout, hoping the primal explosion would somehow harry it. The grinning visage did not respond. Instead, it hung in the air, its twin violet eyes shedding a shimmering radiation like the arc of a far-off welder. The same eyes I had seen lurking behind the audience. You! If the thing had a body, I lacked the organs to detect it. Its presence, like an unknown color, impressed itself on the space around me, spreading through the air as music fills the room of a deaf man. I stood and ran toward the door, when finally its will whispered, "Stay." I froze, and for reasons I cannot guess, I turned back and received a series of strange expressions. We glowered at each other for some time, I afraid to move, it motionless on some unfathomable grounds. I examined the uxus cream slathered roughly about its face and followed the smears that faded into unseen ends. I could not help but notice something. The makeup was applied in a mocking parody of how I myself used it before in some of the shows. Then suddenly, as if by surprise, I began to discern emotion in its countenance. I read the intentions in its features as they changed ever so slightly. At first, its bearing was blank. Then a hint of wonder overtook it, and that slowly shifted into a pleasing grin, as if amused with my curiosity. Its manners suggested a language that I did not understand, yet understood me.
"Fear not, Audiel,"
uttered the face as it glanced at my bed.
"I come begging only your company this night."
The blanket slowly pulled away from the mattress, coiling up the spirit's matterless form as a serpent envelops its prey. Once sufficiently swaddled, the ghost reclined into my chair, shifting as if unused to existence. My paralysis waned slightly as I broke into an uncontrollable tremor. I stood shaking, examining the intruder from between quivering lids.
"So long I have searched for you, child. Audiel. That is your name, is it not? I have traveled deep, so very deep into the earth, and now I have found you."
Though I had no idea what it spoke of, I nodded blankly, yes.
"Close your eyes!"
It shrilled. Surprised by its order, I shut them quickly.
"You will see me better in your mind, for fleshy eyes are poor when decoding the truth of things."
Although I barred my sight to this strange force paying me a visit, I could imagine its position in the chair clearly.
"I promise that no evil will befall you here,"
I heard it say.
"for I am far less wicked than your world is."
What the hell are...
My attempt is unsuccessful and I'm cut off.
"Unimportant is my name, but I will hasten to what is."
Its voice was so faint and unusual that I was not sure if I sensed it with my ears or if the sounds reached me via a different medium. I squeezed the small charm in my hand to remind myself that it did exist and this must be real.
"After much time I have found you, sleeper in the mountain,"
it said.
It's hard for me to hear you.
"Try harder to listen."
It snapped. I opened my eyes again and somehow witnessed the levitation of a pair of round glasses, the very spectacles it was rumored that disembodied eyes had once appeared behind. He put them on and let out a long wheeze.
"I must admit, I was ever curious about this realm of yours beyond the scrim, the reality where you were made, but I am certain that it appears very different to you than it does to my sight."
At that moment, the entity caught a glimpse of the mystic coat rack by the closet. It lifted from the chair and glided over toward it.
"The next question you would be wise to ponder is from whence do I come?"
He said, as I wiped a fear-squeezed tear away with my sleeve.
I traveled from a place both near and far. So distant is my home. If you walked for unnumbered eons, you could not reach it. Yet so near, it is closer to you than your own skin. A place so deadly real within, but from without, it is scarcely a wisp.
Was it you playing tricks on me?
I asked.
Moving the costumes around after the show? Stealing my makeup box? Why?
Again, the movements of its mouth escaped my notice. Nevertheless, it spoke.
I tried to reach you many times, Audiel, and from behind many faces. I followed ancient veins in the mountains long forgotten. But we meet at last, and that is what is most vital. We have much work to do, but whatever may befall us, we will share our part together.
The metal antique began to shake to and fro, though the creature made no contact with it. There was a relationship between the ghost and the object. As to what the nature was, I did not know.
Who the hell is Ardiel? Why do you keep calling me?
Enough!
It bellowed, as some of the makeup lost its grip like a peeling paint.
I searched for a purpose. You must rekindle your imagination. Our little project, while close to death, can yet be restored. The Brood's doom is now in your possession. A corpus you must learn to read.
The glow of its purple eyes cast a slight shine on the bony rack, imbuing the metal with a haunting bewitchment, like arcane objects, those icons of myth and fable.
The dreams.
I pressed.
Was that you? I remember your eyes. You were there!
It moved closer, intimidating me with its raw intensity.
Dreams are one way in. And yes, it was I who guided you to the keep.
Guided me there for what?
For those,
he said, pointing to the mask in my hand, his face seeming to flash gold with divine excitement.
Do you believe that when opportunity arrives, it is luck?
Moments pass, and I inject nothing into them.
Nay! It is will that makes it so. Consciousness, even in dreams, alters the projection of existence. Will is the hammer, reality the slag. Batter the world with all your ambitions. Heat creation with your fervent blows, and it will bend in ways you thought unimaginable. Slumber no more. Providence is a word used by the ignorant to describe powers they cannot grasp. When your thoughts grip onto goals and clench tightly, you are in fact holding the script of the universe. And once acknowledged, you can rewrite it.
A chill ran through me. I secretly dug my thumbnail into my finger, hoping the pain would bring me back to my wits, but it continued.
What's more, you had best be careful when you wander in dreams. When you pass behind the duvetine while asleep, you are vulnerable. Study the faces, and you will find better doorways. Practice this art now, and behold, serendipity, covertly martial, will march to your tune.
For some reason, at that moment, I became aware that the rain had stopped.
Let my words turn in your ears, for I may fail to find you again. It will be up to you to put things together. Our next assembly depends on you.
An uncertain sound sprung from behind me. I turned about hurriedly to the drumming of restless squirrels, scratching the stucco and nibbling at the substance around me. When I turned back, the blanket was abandoned. Just like an actor, I thought, to make such an exit. His sudden absence left me with a deep foreboding. I rubbed my eyes and stood for a moment, then nervously grabbed the warm beer and drained its last stale contents. I briefly thought perhaps the insanity had been spurred on by spirits of a more tangible variety. Yet as I opened my hand and let fall the small golden mask, I was informed that it wasn't. Have I gone mad? I sat down on my bed, slowing my breath with active concentration. As the moments passed, the meaning of the visit continued to grow in me like fingernails after death. In truth, I would have kept the damnable experience, the horror that filled my vision that night, to myself if I could. That image, soaked with superabundant fear, afflicted a sensation on me like waters drawn from Antarctic ponds, injected into my neck, growing like freezing crystals in my veins. But I know that if I am to convince you, I must disclose it all. I gazed over toward the gleaming artifact, cleverly disguised as a clothes tree. It seemed to stare back. There was no debate, no argument in my mind now. The paranormality of the night stirred me from my mindset, from that settled law one deems to be the order of things. I had no more time for disbelief or pessimistic reflection. I would set myself in motion at once. I held the old clothes tree and whispered a silent oath to myself. Riddlesbrood is not confined to my mother's attic, nor to a cedar barn. Never again will I allow place to define or limit me. So long as I have you, I'll always have a home. As any CEO is well aware, we have a responsibility to our shareholders, even if they aren't human. One thing was clear. I knew that this would not be my last encounter with Clyde.